Hi. Hello, everyone. Are we here? Are we live? Are we live? Got a haircut, not sure about it just yet. Hi, Joseph. Hi, AZG. G-E-G. Hi, Sean. Hello, Numso. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Happy Friday. Yes, we are live. Kate, how are you? Look at all y'all coming in. Hello, you all. Hi, Heather. It is evening over across the pond, isn't it? Hello. How is everyone? Okay. I think I know what I'm doing this time. I hope. I'm gonna try to invite someone in if I can. Let's see. Now, as the host, am I doing this right? Let's see. I don't know what that means. Oh, there it is, a grid. I did it. Fix layout. Participants. Allow requests from viewers. Yes. Yeah. It's just proofreading our church's worship bulletin. Well, good for you, Janet. Friday afternoon is the time to do that. St. Gertrude's Day. I've never heard of St. Gertrude's Day. Maybe I have. I don't know. Hello, daughter Carol. You saw my response video. I hope I had fun making that. Hello, how are you doing? Totally not obsessed with K-pop. How are you? Ah, there she is. There she is. Okay, I hope I did this right. I did. Hi.
I'm bringing my cat too.
Oh, okay. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of
Hey,
room
Blue.
here.
Say hi. Okay, that's Blue.
Hi. So I just duetted your video of about George Takei. I've got it queued up to post later. Oh my goodness! But you,
I'm like a little verklempt over that because I'm such a big Star Trek fan, and that he's the gay Star Trekker. I mean, I love Nichelle Nichols because she was the first like woman I saw that was ever in anything that was an officer. And then yeah, that in all of the atmosphere that we have right now with all of the anti-LGBTQIA plus bills, the hate bills, the anti-trans bills and everything like that, and he puts Noah on his page.
so I went looking for it and I couldn't find it. Was it on his Twitter page or what
It,
was?
it's apparently on Twitter. I very rarely go to Twitter. It's on his Facebook page.
Oh, I'll go look for it then.
Atticus, get out of there. Sorry.
Who's being nasty?
Atticus is trying
Nasty.
Atticus is trying to open a can of the big giant can of cat food to stick his face into it.
Well, you tried to join me in a live. Gosh, it's been a long time ago, and I couldn't hear you. And you were going to tell your story. Gosh, it's been a long time ago, and I couldn't hear you. And you were going to tell your story about. I don't know if you would call it deconstructing from religion, but I was sitting out on my porch. It was during the summer, and you joined, and I
Oh,
could
I do
not
kind of
hear.
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we had a
could not
bad
hear
connection.
you. So I know people would love to hear your story if you have time to
Sure.
share it and how
I
you
was,
ended up where you are today.
well, yeah, not exactly where I started out. I was raised in Nebraska, in Omaha, and both parents were very conservative Christians, both very conservative Republican. My mother was a soprano soloist at First Presbyterian Church, and my father was a deacon. Um, and but my mother also was a teacher, so she was very, very heavy into education and reading and everything like that. And I started seeing this juxtaposition even as a little kid, because in school you're encouraged to ask questions. You raise your hand, ask questions if something doesn't make sense. And in Sunday school, if you did that, you got in trouble. And it was like, I'm not supposed to. That was like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I tell the story of, I was probably in second grade, and we had had a Sunday school lesson, and I had sat there quietly because I didn't want to get in trouble. And because if you ask questions, you would be say, well, it's a matter of faith, and you're lacking faith, and you're a bad Christian. Oh, for God's sakes, I'm like 8 years old. And so I came home. We came home from church, and I was like, Mom, I need to talk to you. And she was like, okay. And I said, I need to talk to you in private. And she was like, uh-oh. And so we went into her bedroom, and their bedroom was the only the bathroom locked, but their bedroom had a door lock on it. And we went in there, and I looked at her and I said, I need you to close the door and lock it, because I didn't want my father to come in. They knew if my father heard what I was going to say, I was going to get in a lot of trouble and probably get a spanking. And she was like, oh, sure. And so she sat down. I was like, okay, so in Sunday school today, I was like, they were talking about Adam and Eve. And she's like, okay. And I said, okay, Adam and Eve were the first people. Yeah. And I said, then they had Cain and Abel. Those were their two sons. Yes. I said, Cain killed Abel. She was like, yeah. I said, God was very mad at him and banished him to the land of Nod. She's like, yeah. I said, where did the other people come from? And she looked at me and she was like, and the very best answer she said to me, and she goes, I don't know. And she sat down and we kind of talked a little more. And she finally said, well, maybe it's something like an analogy, like Adam was an analogy for all the men and Eve was an analogy for all the women. And I was like, okay, but I mean, that I had to ask that question in second grade behind a locked door. And I always say that that was probably one of the best answers she ever gave me. I had to go. I did not have the option of not going to church until I was 18 and was still living in my parents' home. When I left Omaha, I wanted, it's the nicest thing he ever did for us, because my mother and I started repairing a relationship. But going through college, my first year was at the University of Tulsa, and I actually took a class there called Witchcraft in Art and History. In the middle of the Bible Belt, I took that class, and they were like, what? And one of our textbooks was the Bible. And it was a fascinating class. And then I went to the University of Minnesota, and I took Jewish studies. I took history of the Holocaust. I took some theology classes, and it was like, in Jewish studies, I was like, wait a second, you're allowed to debate? They were like, yeah, there was like some rabbis think this and some rabbis think this, and it's completely different, and it's interpreted this way, and it's radically interpreted this way differently. And I'm like, really?
I want to say something. We're getting notified that we're getting so many loves here with gifts, but Mama Tot is here, and she just sent us some gifts. Mama Tot, we love you so much.
I love you too, sweetie.
Oh,
I love
we
you
have
so
some
much,
wonderful
Ophelia.
people that are giving us gifts. It's going crazy here, and some wonderful compliments. And I was afraid that they would leave before we got a chance to acknowledge them. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, because I'm fascinated.
No,
And
no,
it's
that's fine.
obviously people
Ophelia.
are
Hey,
there.
sweetie.
Your story is resonating with so many people, but Opie, we love you. If you're here, you're welcome to hop in and say hi. If you want to come in, you just let me know, and I'll invite you in. We're just the gifts. I've never seen anything like this before, and I really appreciate everybody who's showing us the love here. So I'm overwhelmed with all of this. So please now go on. So this witchcraft.
I mean, I think I sort of found myself in my 20s. I was always interested in botany. I was always interested in plants and herbal medicine and things like that. And it just sort of made sense. It was like I am on the path of green witchery. And it's funny because looking back, like my father's mother always said, and it wasn't do unto others. She always said, you do not, whatever she said, whatever you put out, good or bad, is going to come back to you three times over. That is the Wiccan rule of three. And it's like, so I wonder if there was, I mean, I think of my great grandmother sort of as a regional witch. She went into the Oklahoma Territory with and had 14 kids. There were no doctors around, so she had to use plant medicine and her own wits to tend her own family, so they lived. Um, but I've always been interested in religion. Um, my mother in the summertime, the quartet, the church had a paid quartet, so she was a paid soloist. In the summertime they were off, so to make extra money, we would go around to other churches. So I've seen a lot of other services. I've been to literally probably hundreds of weddings and funerals because she sang at so many.
Hmm.
Um, and so I've seen a lot of the others, and people, and I think one of the things that some Christians have trouble with, especially the evangelicals, is they find out I was raised Christian and I'm no longer Christian. They're like, well, you just need to read your Bible. It's like, well, I have more than once. I even did papers on the books of the Bible for my communicants class. I mean, it, it's like there was a lot of study. And when my mother passed, she passed in 2017, and I talked with the minister about her funeral. And we're sitting in the little library of the church I grew up in. And I was actually talking very freely with him about my spiritual beliefs. And I said, I think there's some tragic flaws in Christianity. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I, I do believe that Jesus Christ was a real person, that he walked the earth. I do not believe he was the son of any god or goddess. I believe the early Christians deified him. And in doing that stripped his humanity from him. You don't have to be the son of a god or goddess to lead people to a better way of life, to lead them to be kind and do unto others, to be fishers of men, as it were. Um, you don't have to walk on water or do that. I mean, you don't have to. And I said, also in studying Christianity, the mysticism of Christianity has been completely erased.
Oh boy.
And I
Yes.
believe that every spiritual path, no matter what you believe, has an element of mysticism in it because there has to be an element of the unknown.
So have you heard of the Nag Hammadi scriptures, the ones that were found, the Gnostic Gospels? Have
Mm-hmm.
you heard of them? So that a lot of those Gospels had a mystical element to them,
They did.
and the thought is that they were intentionally left out of the Bible or hidden from the ones
Yep.
who had power because they did have this mystical tendency to say that which is part of creation, the divine essence, the mystery, whatever name you have for the holy, is inside us. But in order, that gave the individual too much control. If you could go directly, if you had a direct conduit to whatever the divine mystery is, then what's the purpose of religion? So if you don't have this, now, I always caution people to say it's not necessarily that religion is bad, but when it starts to try to weaponize the beliefs to control people, then that's where we start to have problems. So,
Right.
again, spirituality can and does exist outside organized religion. I say that all the time, but that I think is a really good point. And it's interesting that people will really get crazy, oppose those Gnostic Gospels. But if you haven't read them, you should read them, because for those of you out there, if you're interested in reading those, you should at least go read them. Now, some of them can be like a little, you wonder what they were smoking when they wrote them, but still they're worth reading. So please continue, because I want to hear the story that brought you to right to where you are, and understanding who you were, your authenticity, your sexual gender authenticity, how you knew who you were.
I think I mean, people are like, well, what's your coming out story? Well, I really didn't have one. I just sort of, um, in the early days of the 80s and 90s, there was GLBT. There was four categories. It's like, well, so you tried to hammer yourself into one of them. And um, it's sort of a relief now that there is sort of a spectrum. So, and if you identify with more than one, that's fine. But that's sort of the way I feel with my spiritual beliefs too, is um, I'm not, people are like, well, you're Wiccan. No, I'm not. I'm a solitary green witch. So I believe what I believe. And if I wanted to incorporate parts of Christianity or Judaism or Taoism or anything like that, and no one would care because your path is your own.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't use crystals, no one's like, well, who cares? People are always shocked that I don't have a tarot deck, and I'm like, why do I have to have? I don't even know how to read tarot. I don't. It's like that. I don't have a pointy hat either.
Yeah.
Um,
I rely on
but
my friends who know how to read those things to give me gifts. But
and
uh,
I think I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I have never been the type of person that was trying to be a people pleaser. I think that upset a lot of my bosses. I didn't realize till TikTok how I was very bad at hiding my emotions on my face. I have a really rubber face, and if I think you're an idiot, it shows. It's like, oh, so that's why my bosses probably didn't like me.
that's why
Well,
your videos are
I'm
so
not good
good.
at that. I've never been able to do that.
But that's why your videos are so good, because your reaction videos are so good.
And if I always think if you're not comfortable with yourself, you're not going to be any good to anybody else.
Well, I want to expand on that a little bit, because you had talked about being raised Presbyterian and having different church experiences because of your mother's singing and
Hmm.
going to weddings. When you started exploring different spiritualities in college and stuff, did that impact any of your relationships? Since your parents were conservative, did that impact your relationships, or were they accepting of the fact that you were expanding beyond your religious heritage?
My mother, my mother was born in 1925, so introducing her to things, I had to go slowly.
Okay.
And um, one of the biggest things that she did accept at first was that I was not a Republican. She was, and that was fine. But she was also, I always say, she was a smart Republican. She was educated. She had a master's degree. So we talked politics a lot, and she knew I was not a Christian anymore. She knew that, and I because I've just been very open with her, and I had explored elements of Buddhism and Hinduism and all sorts of things like that. And we didn't talk about my religious beliefs a whole lot, but I had sort of a remarkable experience on her last birthday when she turned 92. We were out at her um she lived in Emmanuel Village here, which was a senior center. She lived in independent living, and they had a really nice, like dining room, like with a chef. And she was like, "Well, let's just have dinner out here together." And I was like, "That's fine." So I came out there. Well, my mother was very traditional, and before you ate, you would bless the food. You would say a prayer. And I was like, "Okay." And she was like, "Well, I want you to do it." And I was like, "Okay." And I gave the most pagan, witchy blessing of the food you could ever imagine. I thought, I'm just going to do it. And I finished, I looked at her and she was crying. And I was like, oh God, I really fucked up, made my mother cry on her birthday. I'm like, Mom, what's wrong? And she was like, that was the most beautiful blessing I've ever heard. That makes me cry a little now.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my goodness, isn't it? Now, it's been my experience. My grandmother was Southern Baptist,
Yeah.
and towards the end of her life, she said to me that she felt, talking about religion, she said, I feel like we all have it just a little bit right. And she did like this. And to me, that's like, you got a lot wrong. And, she was a staunch Southern Baptist. Like, we're talking, literalism. The Bible is what it is. Nothing's wrong with it. It's completely infallible. And she said, we're just at the point where we just got a little bit right.
Right.
And I just feel like there was it was more than just, people will say, oh, that's just their softening of the mind. But I think it's an expansiveness of the heart as they get closer to the veil. The thinning of the veil, I think that there's an
Right.
awareness that we might have made life a little bit too complicated here.
Right. Mhm.
And I love that. I was actually looking for a quote from Billy Graham that's kind of been buried, but I'll have to go look for it, where he talks about the fact that there are basically many paths. And he said it. He said it. I'm sure
Yeah.
Franklin Graham doesn't want to admit it, but Billy said it. Later
We
on
used
in
to
his,
watch Billy Graham when I was a kid on
oh yeah,
TV. He'd get on every now and then, and I always liked his preaching.
that's such a
I
beautiful
don't know if
gift.
I'd like it now.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful gift though that your mother gave you.
Well,
And
and it kind of made me think, boy, I should have been a little more open about it before, because that her birthday was October, and then she passed in November. But I also was with her when she passed. I mean, I moved back to Omaha, um, because I had been taught a very, very profound lesson. I had um, a a guy here that I was in love with, and we would always meet up when I come back to Omaha. I lived in Minneapolis, so we had a long distance relationship. But I had a really good job. I was working for the state of Minnesota. I was making lots of money, and he died of an aneurysm, and was like, okay, well, I've got to learn something from Ernie's death. And I learned that you don't have time. And I was like, well, my mom's in her 80s. And I was like, I'm going back to Omaha. I hadn't lived in Omaha for 30 years. So like quit my job, packed everything up, moved back to Omaha, found an apartment, and I was like, my mom was like, you're coming back to Omaha. And I had 5 years with her, and I have no regrets.
oh,
You can't, that time with someone like that, you can't get back.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. You also reminded me of when I went to seminary. I kept it close to my chest. Only me, my husband, and my kids knew that my seminary was interfaith, interspiritual, because I was raised Southern Baptist, and
Oh,
I was a closet deconstructing Christian, and I thought I don't know what I'm going to do. So my family's saying things like, "Well, what church you going to go to?" Look, oh, I don't know. Knowing
Unitarian.
knowing damn well there wasn't a church that would have me. But after I was ordained, my father-in-law was a very conservative Presbyterian. So when we got together, it was always the man in the house that had the prayer. So this was the year that he was going, the year before he died. We were at the table and he asked me to have the prayer. And that I remember I couldn't talk when we got home on the drive home. My husband was asking me about it. And I said, I can't talk about it. My husband said, he's never asked a woman to have the prayer. And he would ask me questions. He would ask me questions about what interfaith, interspiritual meant, because I was starting to
Yeah.
talk more about who I was. And that was like the first affirmation. He knew I was not I was not an ordained Christian pastor, but yet he offered that to me as a gift. And isn't it wonderful to have those gifts of our ancestors, if you will, that affirm that they understand who we are, and the
Right.
gifts that are different than theirs, but moving us closer to a kinder and more compassionate world. But to get to that place, and you mentioned in your video I just saw before we went live, is you mentioned about the 400 pieces of legislation that's happening right now in the LGBTQ against LGBTQIA plus. And I know you are getting the same kind of requests that I am from people who are saying, I don't know what to do. I'm not safe in my state. And we have talked that we all need to be talking to say, what are we going to do to help people, or what advice? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, because I know that you get a lot of requests. Like I can't imagine the level of requests that you get. I know what I get with just the 630,000 followers. But what can you say to people, or what do you say to people to try to help them who are concerned about where our country is right now?
I'm it's almost so overwhelming that you don't know which way to turn.
Yeah.
Um, because one state does it, then another state wants to be just like them, and it's almost like we're getting a list of states that are sundown states
Yeah.
that aren't safe for that literally aren't safe for either women or LGBTQI plus people or both to live in. And um, the um, the states that have already done it, the states that I would consider not safe, like Texas and Florida, even Missouri, which is close to me, um, it almost is like I will never go there. You will not, because we're coming up on summer. The next thing they're going to want is tourism. You got to be kidding. You think I'm going to go to Florida and spend my money? Absolutely not. Um, I absolutely would not go to any state that has um, legislation like that. And it's very likely that I will probably leave Nebraska because Nebraska is also doing it. They want to be, Nebraska wants to be Oklahoma so badly. And it may be that we have states that are safe states and states that aren't that are not safe. And like I just saw a video from Shining Nathan, who I absolutely love. He lives in Texas. And he's like, I don't think it's going to be safe for me here. And he said, I think I'm going to have to leave because he said, I can't even dress the way I want to dress and go out in public. And he said, my mother and my aunts and uncles are here. My mother doesn't want to leave. She wants to spend her twilight years with her family in Texas. And his mother has said, leave. She said, it's my job to protect you. And if you have to leave, you have to leave. So if he has to, and I'm like, if I'm not sure about the laws in Colorado. I mean, that's close to Texas. I don't know. But then you come back to Texas and almost like you have to wear a costume. You can't be yourself. You can't even dress the way you want to dress. The way you dress doesn't affect anybody else.
Yeah. There's a lot
I'm
of,
not handing out muumuus on the street any more than he is handing out, whatever he wears on the street. It's like, it's just
exactly.
what we're comfortable in.
There's a lot of comments saying that really touched on people who are afraid. And I think we're going to end up with a database of safe
Mm-hmm.
places, safe communities, safe refuges, which I can't believe I'm saying inside our country, but that's what it's going to end up being, so that
I
people
can.
can move from place to place to get them to safe place. I just got some information that I'll share in a video, and I'll tag you about a volunteer pilots that
Mm-hmm.
are coming together
Yeah,
as a
Chief
nonprofit.
Pilot does that. I know them. Yeah,
Okay.
they started off doing like if you need reproductive care
Yeah.
and health care and it's not available in your state or it's 500 miles away, they will give you a free flight to wherever you need to go. They will also do it for gender affirming care.
Okay, good. Because I asked them if they'll do it to help people relocate. I saw that they'll do it for gender affirming care, but will they help if somebody just needs to get out of the state?
I don't I don't know if they do that because I don't know how you move by an airplane because they're a
Well,
little
you can't.
sensitive.
Yeah, if you could get the person and then their goods are coming
Yeah.
in a different
But I mean,
place.
I don't know. It might
Yeah,
be easier to rent a U-Haul.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh
Um,
my dear, we're going to have to do this again sometime. I have hospice nurse Penny getting ready to come on the
okay.
line, but this went by way too fast, my dear.
Well, I'm
Thank
glad we can
you.
do it. I mean, I'm in school till May, so
Okay.
we could definitely chat again.
Oh, we will. We'll do this more often. I think Mama Tot's still here too. Mama Tot, do you know how much we love you? Perfectly G. What? Who's here? And Danny T is here. Hillbilly, do
Can
you,
you add Mama Tot right now just so
well,
we
I
can see
don't
her for a minute?
know. I said something to her, but she didn't
Hit the
say.
multi-guest and see if she'll accept.
All right, I'll see if she'll accept.
Mom Tot, you still here? Opie.
Opie, are you here? I can't see her. I can't
I saw
see
her
her
just a
coming on.
minute ago.
I see Danny. Yeah, she was here, but it's not coming up. So it might she she might
And
be
you're doing
busy.
multi-guest, not um
You have to remember. Now I'm going to go ahead and let Nurse Penny in though.
no, that's fine. I can
You know Nurse Penny, don't you?
yeah, sure I
Well,
do. I love her.
hello. Here she comes.
Hi.
Hi. Can you
I don't
see
know why
us?
it's not showing. Oh, here. I think
Hit
see
the
mine.
icon, hit the circle icon, and then hit the camera. There you are.
And and someone is asking all of us where to find us if TikTok is banned. We're all on Instagram,
Yeah.
and I'm on YouTube. Nurse Penny, are you on YouTube?
Yeah, I'm on
And how about
YouTube,
you, Rosie? Are you
I
Facebook,
do. I
Instagram.
don't do much with my YouTube page.
okay?
But I also do not. I mean, this is like the 900th time they've tried to ban TikTok.
Oh, so
When
you're
I
not as
first got on
worried.
TikTok in 2020, like within a few months, it was when the first time that Dingleberry McFuckstick said he was going to ban it, and people were making goodbye videos, and I'm like, oh, please. I like, please. First of all, first that's when you start fighting harder,
That's right.
and it's like it's not the first time. I mean, this is actually a business.
Yeah.
There are people that buy advertising on here, there are people that sell things on here. This is a money-making business. And to ban something like that in the United States, really?
Well,
You're going to do.
Rosie, you're getting a request to get your YouTube going because they don't want to support
I
Meta.
do have it. I just don't upload videos. I need like somebody to sit and upload video because you can only do 5 at a time. It's like,
Okay, well, we might have to have a tutorial for those of us who aren't very good at it.
all right. Well, I'll
Okay.
drop off. It was good seeing you all. It's
Love
hot
you,
for dinner.
sister. Thank you so
All right.
very
I love you.
much. Yeah,
Bye.
love you. See you soon. Hello there, my dear. Oh, have we lost
Hi.
you? There you are.
No, I'm here.
I love the
Can you hear
hair.
me?
You've got it straightened out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do that from time to time.
Well, I like it. It looks wonderful. So
Thank you.
I'm going to our message because I loved what you were talking about. There's so much we could talk about. There's so many places that our content kind of crosses into the spirituality part. But I want to start with something that you might have forgotten. Thank you, Laura. That you may have forgotten about. It was last year. You had done a video about I'll pray for you. And then I did a video and we really people were really very triggered by that conversation and feeling like we were pushing into their faith. And I would like to hear from your perspective about why that was why that can be such a damaging and offensive thing to say to people that, hey, I'll pray for you. Do you mind starting there?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's almost always driven by Christianity, first of all. It's not a lot of other religions that are going to do that. And to me, it falls in the realm of proselytizing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, if you don't know somebody's belief to say something like that to them, that you're going to pray for them, in one way, it's a little bit demeaning. Like, they're better than you, right? Like, they are better than you, so they're going to pray for you. And if I remember, I think it was somebody saying they were going to pray for me for, I don't even remember what the reason was, but it probably had something to do with, my views, or, being an
Yeah.
ally or something
Yeah.
like that. And so it's very insulting when people say that, as if that's not okay and it's something that people need to pray about for me. so that I'll somehow change and be more like them. And I think so that's what it really comes down to for me, is this feeling of you think you're better than me and you need to pray for me because you think you're better than me. And I really feel like sometimes that Christianity is rooted in that. Like
Yeah.
there's this we are better than everybody else
Yeah. So good.
perspective.
And it's really resonating. It's really resonating with people. Now, you in our chat, you had mentioned something about, well, no, this is a question I want to ask you. Sorry, I'm a little rusty here at interviewing somebody.
That's
How has
okay.
your you, because you're a hospice nurse and you have
Mhm.
obviously a lot of experience. Your content is amazing and it touches a lot of
Thank you.
people. How has your uh, beliefs about spirituality, how obviously you haven't have no trouble pushing back on any kind of rigid dogma, but how has your spirituality and your belief changed since you've been doing hospice care?
So many different ways. First of all, a little background. I was not raised with any religion. I don't even know if my parents were agnostic or atheist. I really don't know. My mom has said she doesn't believe in an afterlife, but then most recently she's been saying that my dad's spirit has been coming to her. She doesn't say spirit, but she says, but I see these little wisps and it's like dad is there. So I think she might be changing her viewpoint. My brother is actually a card carrying atheist. He belongs to the atheist group. So any exposure I had to religion uh, as a child was through friends who went to church and me like being interested in church and finding out too that there was a lot of hypocrisy in the different religions that I experienced, through my friends. Like we would go to church on Sunday and then we would go shoplift, on Saturday, and really or smoke cigarettes or whatever. Like it was, went to the Mormon church for a while and then, my friends in the Mormon church were all having premarital sex, and I was just like, okay, that's kind of different. So I'd always had like this, like, I'm not sure that religion is for me. I didn't really know how I felt about, God or a higher power. I did go through treatment for drug and alcoholism when I was 27, and at that time started kind of getting this perspective of a power greater than myself, which I still have. Um, but I was still very much, anti-religion, still encountering people who I felt like thought they were better than me because they were religious. And one of the things I said to you in the Instagram thing was the perspective of the hospice chaplain. So when I was going for surgery, I was 40 years old. I was going in to have a hysterectomy, and it was a military hospital, and a military priest chaplain came to the bedside and asked me if I needed anything from him. And I freaked out. I was like, what is going on? Does this guy think I'm going to die and that's why he's here? Like he thinks I'm going to die and he needs to anoint me or whatever. And so I had a very, very negative view of chaplains. But I got into hospice nursing and as I said, there were several things that affected my spirituality. And one of them was learning about hospice chaplains and understanding that they are there for not just religious care, but for spiritual care. And that even includes just how are your spirits today? How are your spirits today? How do you feel today? Like spiritual, really learning about spirituality from the hospice perspective, which is, everybody pretty much has some kind of spirituality in them. And so learning that about chaplains, like hospice chaplains, are not there to proselytize. They're there for your spiritual care and your religious care. It has nothing to do with their agenda, regardless of their religious affiliation. But probably the most impactful thing for me working around people who were dying, and also I had death anxiety severely too, side note, is seeing people visioning at the end of life. Seeing end of life visioning for me was something that really helped me to feel like there is more to us than just our physical self. When you see time and time again, hundreds of people who are dying, who are saying that they can see in front of them their deceased loved ones, it's just, it's you believe that they see what they see. You just do. It's so convincing. Like you start to think that maybe there's something wrong with you because you can't see what they see. And like over and over again, there's this theme. You know, it's not some rando thing that people see at the end of life. It's always their deceased loved ones, their deceased pets. It's very real to them. They can see these things long before they're taking medications, weeks before their death. They can see these things with or without any kind of brain involvement in their disease process. You know, there's just this theme. And that really helped me a lot because growing up with no religious belief, I did have a fear around dying because I always thought, what if there's nothing after we die and there's just nothing, and it was through seeing that I started to kind of evolve in my spirituality and think that there really is more to us than just our physical self.
Someone's asking if anyone have you ever heard of anyone ever seeing God?
I have never had a patient tell me that they saw God. Sometimes they think they see and angels, and sometimes people see shadows and they don't really recognize who they see at first. And then eventually, they do say, oh, yeah, there's my dad over there, or my wife, or whatever. But I've never had anybody that said, I see God, I see the light, I see Jesus. I have never observed that in any patients. And I heard other hospice nurses say they have, but I personally have not. It's always like a deceased relative. And sometimes
Okay.
it's a deceased person that other people in the family didn't know about, like a baby. And then that was a most interesting one that I think I've seen where the adult daughters were like, why is she seeing a baby girl? What? And the sister said she had a baby girl out of wedlock and she
Oh,
died. And the adult children never knew about it. So,
oh. So someone also said my wife saw children playing in her last weeks, and I want to talk about that because the people that I have sat vigil with all have seen the little children, and their reaction to them is very different. My father-in-law said, "Well, here come the little children. Do you see them under your chair? They know not to come up on the bed because I'm afraid of them," which was interesting. Children in the room.
yeah, I have seen that. And interestingly, I just was tagged in a TikTok with a woman who has dementia. I don't know how close to her end of life she is, but her daughter filmed her and she said, there's three kids here. There's three. They're right there. And the daughter shows nobody there. And she said, who are they? She said, I don't know. I don't know who they are. There's just the kids over there. So yeah, I have seen that too, where they've seen children and there's children in the room and pets. I had one lady who was looking for a cat,
Hi,
and I
Brian.
was I
Nice
was
to meet
working
you.
at a hospice care center at the time. I was at the hospice care center, and she said there was a cat. She's looking for a cat, and I go, we did allow pets there, but I was like, did somebody bring your cat in here? And and looking around, and she, oh no. And then she said, oh, it's not, it's my cat that I used to have when I
Oh,
was a kid. And I was like, oh, okay. So she was seeing her cat who had died.
I want to ask you another question. I've seen you talk on this a lot as well. Uh, Not pushing liquids at the end of life because a lot of people think that it's inhumane if they're not eating or if they're not drinking, that obviously they're uncomfortable. And you've made a point to talk about why it's important to allow the body to die naturally because it's lost the ability to process. Can you talk a little bit more about why it's part of the active dying process?
Yeah, so our bodies do know how to die, and we go through a dying process that involves kind of shutting down, right? And so, in order for us to shut down, we have to keep the core working, like our heart and lungs, the important vital organs. And so our body goes into energy conservation. So the first thing that happens when a person is dying is they start to sleep more and they start to eat less. Digestion takes a lot of energy, and the body doesn't need nutrition anymore. It's getting ready to die. So So that's the earliest thing that starts to happen is people just don't want to eat anymore. And we never say don't feed someone. We say offer, but don't force, don't coerce. If they eat a bite or two, that's okay. Give them what they want. That's all right. If they don't want to eat, it's really fine. They're not going to die of starvation. They're dying from their disease. And the same thing with fluid. So because the body's going through this process, it's going to start like shunting all of the oxygenated blood to the heart and lungs. So our hands and feet and our arms and legs are not getting circulation anymore. The circulation is changing. And when we start to put fluids into a body that cannot appropriately circulate them throughout, then those fluids start to build up around the heart and lungs, and it becomes very uncomfortable for the person to breathe. It can be painful. It's called third spacing when that happens. So again, another part of the dying process as the body is shutting down is that people lose their ability to swallow. They can't swallow anymore. And the first sign of this is that they start to cough when they're taking thin liquids in. So they'll take a sip of water or a sip of juice and they'll cough. And that's our signal that, okay, they can't swallow anymore. So then what happens is people are worried their person's going to dehydrate to death, and that's got to be painful. And so let's do IV fluids. Well, those IV fluids, again, are going to go here and then cause more discomfort and can contribute to the death rattle, which is not uncomfortable for the person who's dying, but really uncomfortable for the people who are around, who are hearing it. And also I've recently been hearing that when the body becomes dehydrated, it changes the chemical balance and it causes people to sleep more. So they're actually going to sleep more and be more comfortable, as they're getting closer to the end of their life. But I like to say, this isn't like a person who's in the desert and they can't get a drop of water to drink. This is a natural process. And for people who can't swallow and are expressing that they feel thirsty, oftentimes it's just that their mouth is dry. And we have to do really good oral care to keep the mouth moist at the end of life so they don't feel that discomfort in their mouth. It's not like dehydration. These are people who are dying a natural death. They're, again, dying from their disease, not from dehydration, not from starvation. There are many, many processes that are changing in the body. And those are kind of the two that are most notable and observable because we all eat, we all drink. But there are other things that are happening as well. People who are diabetic, their blood sugars are going to be all over the place. Blood pressure is going to be all over the place. There are many other changes that happen in the body. We're not making as much urine anymore. There are all these different changes. But those are the two that are most notable because people stop eating, they stop drinking. And also, I think the other thing is, family members who are not medical want to do something for their dying person. They want to feel like they're helping. And so they can feed. Anybody can feed somebody. Anybody can get somebody to eat.
I want to not miss this question, but I want to go back to what you just said. So in a minute, someone wants you to elaborate on what it means by what you mean by the death rattle. But before you answer that, I want to talk about what you just said, because one of the things I think, especially here in America, we think that we have to be doing something in order to comfort because we're not good at holding space. But part of that comes from our own discomfort to be able just to pause, because we have to be comfortable with the dying process and knowing that just being there is, and holding witness and holding space and offering love and bring a sense of calm to the room is as beautiful of a gift than anything active that we can do with our hands. And that's a very hard thing to convince people of when we've come from this culture that says we need to pray, we need to be doing something with our hands, we need to be up and moving and things like that. Can you elaborate on the death rattle, please?
I can, but first I want to address what you just said, because there's also this feeling of we need to fix things, right? People will tag me in a video with somebody who's grieving because they found out that they're going on hospice or their person's going on hospice, and they'll tag me and they'll say, can you help? And yeah, no, I can't, because people need to go through what they're going through. You can't fix everything. And it's true. Sometimes it's just a matter of holding space. And I think it's really normal for us to feel like we want to do something when we feel like somebody's in distress or dying or whatever, we feel like, oh, we want to do something about that because it makes us uncomfortable just to sit and be present and hold space. So I agree with you very much on that. So the death rattle is a noise that people make when they're dying. It's very predictive of death. I want to say statistically, 85% of people will die within 2 to 3 days of developing the death rattle. I just looked this up the other day because I was making some education for work. So it can be very predictive of death. But what it is again, when we're dying, we're losing our ability to swallow. So those of us who are not dying are swallowing our spit down all day long. We have secretions. Our bodies make secretions, and we are swallowing that down. We don't even know it. We're not even aware of it. Except for now that I said that, everybody's like, oh, yeah. It's like Lucy on Charlie Brown becoming aware of her tongue. But anyway, when a person is dying and they're not swallowing those secretions down anymore. And so it starts to build up in the airway. And when they are breathing, the air is moving over that and making a gurgling or a rattling noise. It's not harmful to them. They're unresponsive when this is happening. They're dying. They can't feel it. They're not going to drown in those secretions. And somebody that's been hydrated with IV hydration can sound really bad, like a washing machine. So people in the hospital can really have a very, very significant death rattle. And family members are very uncomfortable with that. They feel like they're going to drown in those secretions. It must be uncomfortable. Now, we know in hospice, because we are able to evaluate comfort in a person or discomfort in different ways. One is by looking at the face. And if people are relaxed and they're not creased up and they're relaxed, then we know they're not uncomfortable. So we know that the death rattle does not cause discomfort for the person. We have medications that can dry them out, but they don't work very well and they dry the mouth out. So it's kind of a trade-off. So I don't prefer to use the medications. I've always just wanted to educate the family. It's just a noise. And then also just repositioning, raising the head of the bed up and putting the person on their side just helps to kind of calm that rattle down. But I always just tell people it's just a noise. It's not hurting them. It's just spit in there.
I have one other person I'm going to invite in. So I want to end with this last question, but we're going to have to do this again because this has been fascinating. And there's about 10 other questions that we need to get to next time. Why did you choose this? You've been doing this a while and you're obviously passionate about it, but why did you choose this as your chosen career as a nurse? You could be anything or do anything with that profession. Why did you choose hospice?
Well, a couple of reasons. And I became a nurse in my 40s. I was 40 when I went to nursing school. So I'm an old nurse and I've only almost done hospice my whole career. I've done hospice for almost 18 years. As I said, had a drug and alcohol problem when I was younger. I went to jail. I could not launch my life, gave my son to his dad to raise, just was kind of a ne'er-do-well. And when I got my life cleaned up, there became a point when I really felt like I wanted to kind of give back to the universe and I wanted to do service work. And I knew that hospice was that kind of work. My stepmother-in-law died a year before I became a nurse on hospice. And I just knew that the work that those nurses were doing was sacred. It really felt like service work to me. And so that was my goal when I became a nurse, was to get into hospice. And I also had kind of a morbid curiosity around death and dying. I had never seen a dead body in real life. I had terrible death anxiety and I was just kind of fascinated with it. So there's a couple of layers, but it just worked for me.
Your patients are very lucky to have you, and we're so lucky to have your stories here, and I'm so honored to call you friend, both here and on Instagram. So let people know where they can find you, just in case something happens here. Rosie doesn't think that it's going to happen, so I'm going to believe Rosie. But just in case, where can you
Yeah,
be
me
found?
too. I remember that. I remember that, what she's
Yeah,
talking about.
I
I
do
think I did
too.
a goodbye video, but yeah. So I'm Hospice Nurse Penny on all of the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Great.
Hospice Nurse Penny all the way across. And thank you also. And I am such a huge fan of your work. And the day that I found out that you were following me back, I was like, yes. I love to be mutuals with people who I admire and respect, and you are definitely one. And
Oh,
I love what you're doing also on the social media. I think
well,
it's very, very, very valuable.
well,
So I'm excited to be able to do this with you today. So
I
thank
did
you
too.
so
It was
much.
fun. We'll do it again sometime, okay? All right.
Absolutely.
Bye,
All
dear.
right. Have
Thank
a great
you.
day. Bye.
Bye-bye. There he is. Oh, invite. All right, I have one other person. We're going a little long today. Sorry for you moderators. You're doing great. I'm gonna get you all in here. Is Alvin here?
Yes.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, we've done it.
Yes, finally.
You've made it in. Can you turn on your so we can see you? Can you turn on your camera? And I wish I could tell you how to do it there, Alvin. I don't know how.
Okay. Second.
Yes, I agree, Numasol. This is amazing. I love the conversations, and I cannot wait to talk to Alvin because of your knowledge and your experience. Hello,
Hi.
mutual. Hello, dear friends.
Hello.
Even though this is our first time meeting officially, hello, tattooed pocket rocket. I want you, first of all, so your account is still just getting started. So I want people that aren't going to know who you are. So please introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what your focus is here on TikTok.
Oh, excellent. So my name's Alvin Sexton. I live out in Colorado Springs, and I'm part of a group out here that really tries to bring awareness about Christian nationalism mainly, and a lot of other big topic issues of the day. We are a blue state out here, but I'm just a blue dot in a red city. We're getting there. We're almost purple, but we still have a lot of ways to go. And we really talk about issues that people don't want to talk about, and we ruffle a lot of feathers out here.
So that's what I want to talk about because your videos. So if you're not following Alvin, please do at alvin.sexton. Tell us right now what you're seeing across the landscape because really so much is happening with all the legislation that's being proposed or has passed on the state level. But what is your biggest concern when it comes to how Christian nationalism is impacting our democracy right now or threatening our democracy?
Yeah, my biggest concern is that a lot of people are playing it off like it's not an issue. And in Colorado Springs, this is the epicenter of the Christian nationalist movement. It's the headquarters of Focus on the Family. And then we have other outside groups that come in, like the Heritage Foundation and the National Policy Alliance Council. Like a lot of different people come in, and they're taking it over from a local level because Republicans know they can't really win the popular vote on a national level. So they'll get into this legislature, they will gerrymander districts up, and they'll win elections that way. And that's the game plan. And that's what we're really trying to bring awareness to and let people know that, hey, they're going after your school boards like Moms for Liberty. I don't know if anybody here is well familiar with them, but look them up. We had a rally the other day at a District 11 school board because they're going to force teachers to not ask pronouns and not ask for health surveys. And by health surveys, I mean teachers asking kids, like, hey, are you doing okay mentally? Is everything okay at home? They think that's an infringement on rights. And that's what we were there protesting. And Moms for Liberty showed up. And luckily, we had hundreds, I think maybe 300-400 people show up for us, and
Wow.
only about 25 for them. So they were severely outnumbered.
Well, I
So
think we know that the majority of Americans are not supporting Christian nationalism. The problem is that they've had this 50, 60-year plan that they now have infiltrated these positions of power that we now are trying to dismantle. So we're behind this. You mentioned gerrymandered, and Heather Cox Richardson, I'm sure you read, she's a political historian, and She says that if they continue with some of these gerrymandered districts, that it doesn't matter what the majority want, that in some of these places, a Democratic candidate or any other candidate for that matter will not be able to win. It'll always go to the Republican. What are your thoughts on that?
It's absolutely correct, and we've seen this with the Supreme Court, how they have put people in place. And so, like right now, in Tennessee, I don't know if you saw the recent um, marriage ban that they're proposing. It would ban marriage based on same-sex couples, based on couples who are mixed race. And obviously, this is illegal, and they know that. But what they want to do is get it passed and somebody challenge it in court, and then take it to the Supreme Court so they can overturn what's already been here. It's a genius plan, and they've done it successfully. Unfortunately, now we really have to fight back against these people. And going back to the county level, like our county commissioners here, they have the ability or had the ability to redraw their own districts every 2 years. And so essentially, they were just cutting these districts up, and we've never had a Democrat elected to county commissioner seat, despite we have four state houses in Colorado Springs out of nine. So, but we have zero representation. So that's a big issue that we're dealing with as well.
So, there's many of us out here that's making content to raise awareness, to make sure people are paying attention and that we don't go back to sleep. But what actionable things can people do when they're, like what can we do if we want to look at from the local level, state, besides just voting? What are the other things that people can do?
I think they need to get involved, actually, whether it be getting involved with your local party or actually running for office. Don't be afraid. Like, I was just really sick and tired in 2020 of a lot of things I was hearing. So I decided to run for office in my local district. It was a deep red district. I never had a chance of winning, but we went in there and we took 40% of the vote, and no Democrats came close to that. And I'm just a little, guy. I'm a mechanic. I'm nobody special. I just had a lot of issues I was passionate about, and it turns out a lot of people agreed with me. So I would really encourage people to run for something, run for school board, run for city council, go to those meetings nobody cares about because they're happening all the time. City council meetings, county commissioners, school board, etc.
So I saw Goddess Mia did a video. I haven't duetted it yet, but it's talking about I think it's a national protest now on March 31st. Have you, and you mentioned that you showed up to protest Moms of Liberty and you outnumbered them 3-1. So what do you know about protest, or how can people find out about what's happening? Or is there, do you know anything about a national movement to start protesting on a national level?
I've only heard about it because people were commenting on my video. And in Colorado Springs, I reached out to the chair of the Democrat Party, and then we want to do a protest if nobody else is doing it. There is a really popular nonprofit. It's called Inside Out Youth Services. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're very popular here in Colorado Springs, and I know they have reach all across the country. Look for nonprofits like that because they're going to be the ones that are going to, be making these protests happen. If not, do it yourself because right after Roe versus Wade were overturned, me and the current Democrat Party chair in El Paso County, we just did our own protest, and that turned out to be massively successful. And it was our first time doing it. We had about 12-hour notice, but we pulled it together. Like maybe 250, 300 people showed up, which is a lot for Colorado Springs. Maybe not a lot for somebody else, but for Colorado Springs, that was a big statement.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Moms for Liberty. I mean, we've heard about them, but
Yeah.
this is a national group. Are they, but they're convening nationally and they're acting locally. Tell us, somebody that doesn't know about them, what is Moms for Liberty?
Yeah, so they are a group of moms, and they have some men in there now. And what they did, they started organizing back in 2020 during the COVID lockdowns. They said that making people and children wear masks was unconstitutional. So they started showing up to school board meetings and, just saying a lot of fictional things that aren't real. So they claim to be a grassroots organization, which they're not. They're funded by the Koch brothers and
Oh.
Stop the Steal. Yeah, and Stop the Steal rally is where they got a lot of their money from. and they are tied to organizations of people such as Charlie Kirk. If you know anything about Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
yeah. So I have actually did a video, and I had a diagram and it explained where Moms for Liberty was getting all their funding from. It's not a grassroots movement at all. It's a conscious effort by far right Republicans.
So now let's talk a little bit about Christian nationalism, because this is really the root of it. This is their rallying cry. This is their time, and even like what Trump truthed out last night about this protecting Christian nationalism. He has it in one of his statements. They're just full out now. But and at the epicenter of this, they often talk about Trump being the problem, but really there isn't a safe Republican. If we look, of course, DeSantis is just as dangerous. I call him a smart Trump because he's a little bit more smart. But I see Mike Pence as extremists because he is an evangelical Christian. So for anybody who's out there who might be a moderate, thinking that there's a chance that the solution will come from the inside, what are your thoughts on what's happening with Christian nationalism and its entrenchment in the Republican Party?
I think the Republican Party really needs to look at itself and see how it wants to be defined. I agree with you. I don't think there's a Republican out there who's not going to stand for quote unquote Christian values. And I hate the fact that we tie being a Christian to being Republican because there are Christian Democrats and there are also Christian Republicans. One thing that I really would like to see is this Christians against Christian nationalist movement take off
Yeah.
because we need to let people know that, hey, you can be a Christian and not be a batshit crazy Republican as well. So I really hope that is something that we see take off in 2024. I know it's gaining traction, but I don't think it's really gaining enough traction just yet.
Yeah, I'm friends with them now here on the app, so we need to invite them in and do a live with them and get them some notification, because I do feel that anyone who's a Christian needs to be speaking out against Christian nationalism. Someone asked me the other day about why we're not seeing more Christians. Well, I think we are. I think we are seeing Christians talk against it, but part of it is our indoctrination. We knew that, we didn't really, we dismissed the Westboro Baptist Church. We just thought, the crazy church down the street, oh, just leave them alone. But that's actually the boiling plate that those ideologies were digging in and getting entrenched into this anti-LGBTQIA plus homophobic, transphobic, racists ideology that was the foundation of this Christian nationalism, and it spoke to them. I'm not too far off here, am I? I mean, I think that
No.
that's what's really happened, and so we ignored them, thinking they were harmless because that's what we were taught to do. So that that's now people are having to learn how to try to find their voice. And that's a hard thing. That's a really hard thing for some people to do. So I agree with you that Christians against Christian nationalism, they do have a TikTok. If you haven't found them, go find them. Anything else that you would like to add to this? Your last final thoughts, what you want people to do, or?
Yes, last final thoughts. I cannot express this enough. Just please get involved at the local level because all politics is local. And the reason why Republicans are concentrating on local politics is because nobody does. And if they can get in there to the local city, county level, they can regulate the rules a lot easier than getting in on the national level. So that would be my last final advice to people.
Okay. I have one
Don't
more
be
question. Go
okay.
ahead.
Go for it.
I was
I
going
was
to
going to
ask you
say.
about.
Sorry. Okay. I'll say the last thing is that I know whenever you're trying to go up against Christian nationalism, people will try to portray you as an atheist, but you need to just stand up to that. Be like, no, I'm not an atheist. I just know what the Bible says. And you're not going, with the Bible. So don't be afraid with that because we made a video about Christian nationalism and that really stirred a lot of things up here. We had death threats the first few hours because people thought we were a couple atheists coming in. But the video, if you watch it, clearly says, we're not atheists. We're just against you using religion to oppress other people.
Yeah, and this is a really good point for those of you. There's a lot of comments going on here. Alvin has amazing. Hi, Transgrams. Hi, sweet soul. Alvin has amazing content. And when you're looking for content that's actionable, it's educational and it's actionable, please go visit alvin.sexton and follow. And if something happens here to this app, Alvin, where else can people find you?
On Facebook mainly. Twitter, I just use that to promote my TikTok account, but
Okay.
mainly this and Facebook.
Anything on YouTube yet?
We have a channel just started recently, so we're trying to work on YouTube to build that up.
Yeah, all of us are scrambling to get all these up. Alvin, thank you so very much. It was so good talking to you, and let's do this again, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Take
Bye bye.
care.
You too. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye. Bye.
Okay, everyone, this was wonderful. I had so much fun. Thank you. I think that we had some amazing questions. Trust me, I'll have every one of these back on. Hospice Nurse Penny and Alvin, and of course, my dear friend Rosie. Thank you all very much. Be sure to go to my Linktree. I have a new resource guide called Deconstructing Christianity and 5 essential elements to do that. So you can go download that. That's free. You can go to my Linktree to find that. And I have an upcoming forum soon where we're going to talk about leaving church and finding God, finding hope after leaving religion. So be looking for that information as well. This has been wonderful. I'm all fired up now. Wonderful information and very inspiring. Thank you all so very, very much. And we'll do this again next Friday with a whole other slew of guests. So be looking for that. Thank you so much and have a great weekend. We'll talk soon. Start waving bye to me and with wave emojis so I know that you see that I know there's a delay here. Thank you.